Hey, what's up everybody? How's it going? Thanks for tuning into the channel. I wanted to make a quick buyer's guide for specifically the 2007 to the 2009 GT500s. Speaking on those on behalf because I own a 2009 GT500 I picked up last year in July of 2018. It had 2,500 miles on it, 2 owners, basically a garage queen. They both had it for, I mean, if you do the math there, about a little more than 1,000 miles each on their part. Did all their maintenance on it and everything like that while they owned it. So, stout car. Spent a long time trying to find one that was a good price and a good deal. Depending on where you live, obviously it's going to be a different rate of pricing depending on the condition, seller, things like that. So just do your research, find what you can for the best condition and best pricing that works for you. Some things to note about the car, not specifically with mine, but with the 07 and 09s, specifically the 07. The balancer on that, the stock one, is not so good. A lot of people that have that year tend to replace it with the 2008 or 2009 balancer, just because Ford upgraded those, so they're more stout and just overall better. And for actually the 2007, 2008, and 2009, the other item to address would be the clutch and the flywheel. The material made with those aren't as good as what they used in the 2010 and up models of the GT500. So I would definitely either replace that with the 2010 and up clutch and flywheel or go the aftermarket route. Many different options for you to choose from there, so just do your research, call the right people, specifically the vendors that sell those, and figure out what is good for you and your driving habits and things like that. A little bit about the car. I mean, you can just get this off of Google itself, but it has a 5.4 liter motor in it, dual overhead cam. It has a 2.1 liter Eaton supercharger on it. Makes around 500 horsepower to the crank, really high 400 number for the torque to the crank as well. Around 445 to the wheels. That's kind of like the average for what was dynoed for those cars. And let's see, what else here? It has a TR6060 transmission in it, a Tremec. That thing is stout. I can personally attest to that. Runs great for me. Feels really good. Haven't had any issues at all with it so far. Stock gearing in that as well are 331 gears, so they tend to be a little longer. So a lot of people maybe right off the bat would go to 373s, but I would recommend kind of planning out what mods you want to do for your car, because the more power you put into it, quicker your shifting will probably be. You'll move up through the RPM band pretty quick. So that's why I've kind of stuck right now with the 331s, just to see, you know, my goal is to get 700 wheel out of the car, so I want to see, you know, once I get to there, whether or not the gearing is still good with me, because you know, I don't want to, the things I do with the car between the drag strip and the street, I don't want to have to shift gears crazily fast for the most part. Kind of want to enjoy the pull of it before having to switch. But I mean, I say 373s because a lot of people, you know, that's a perfect balance for daily driving and racing and things like that. So that's usually the main one that people get. Although with switching gears, a lot of people have mentioned that you get gear whine once you do that. May not happen to everybody, but I noticed after doing research and searching through forums, a lot of people complained that was an issue. I'm sure you can look up videos too as well. People probably made some to say, hey, you know, this is what it sounds like after they switched them. So yeah, I'm gonna wait on that. Modifications wise, now that we're past, you know, kind of the general Google answers that you can get, which are those are pretty much solid for the most part, what I just previously said. That kind of is a general list of items that you probably already want to know or that you can get online. The other items though, which are a little harder to figure out without having to do research, I'll kind of give you some information. People tend to do the intake modification, a smaller supercharger pulley, and then a tune on the car. that's usually the first route you kind of want to go. You can roughly net around 100 wheel horsepower from that. Personally, for me, I went from 445 wheel. I did the intake, the tune, and the pulley, and I was roughly in the range of 540 to 545 on a dyno jet. So I was pretty happy about that. Generally, after you do the intake, tune, and the pulley, you're gonna have that sudden burst of power after that. So I'd highly recommend getting a good set of tires on the car. Depending on how you drive, though, that's up to you. You can either get some really good street tires that'll have some decent traction on it, or you can daily the car on a radial. It's up to you. Radial will obviously give you better traction on the street. I wouldn't recommend using a radial on the drag strip with the car, just because it's a stick car. You drive it on the track with a radial. Let's say you dead hook from the tree, you're probably going to break a drive shaft or some of your axles there. So definitely don't recommend that. A bias ply would probably be the best bet. Let's see what else. So intake, tune, pulley, tire. Definitely want to get a heat exchanger too. I would say that would be the fourth mod, give or take where you want to put in that order, because these superchargers do get hot. Positive displacement superchargers do. So you want to dispel that heat so that you're consistently making that same power. Overall, I think these motors can handle probably safely 700 to 750 wheel. Don't take that as a factual statement. That's with a grain of salt. That's what I've heard from multiple people that have modified the cars. That's kind of the safe route. I mean, you could push it more, but in the end, after that range, probably you're gonna kind of risk it, I guess you could say. I don't know, unless you have a super solid, like, stout tune on the car and you're running really good gas on it, like E85 or race gas all the time in it, and you can prevent detonation or knock in your car, then you should be good to go. But I mean, for me personally, and from what I've read, I would say the 700 to 750 wheel range is probably good enough for most people that drive these cars. Unless you're a full race car guy, then that's, you know what to do already. I'd say probably maybe the final note to take on this, these cars, unlike the 2011 to 2014 GT500s, they don't have widebands in them, so the O2 sensors in them, they're not wideband, they're narrowband, so they don't read the air fuel ratio, and you can't get an output on the car from it saying, you know, hey, this is what my air fuel is on the car, or through data logging as well. So in that case, if you do buy a car that's an 07 to 09 GT500, you want to install a aftermarket wideband sensor in it. I used a AUM Uego. There's videos, instruction guides on the internet on how to install those. They're fairly simple. Once you get that installed in your car, then bam, you have a gauge ready for you in the car that you can see your air fuel ratio, so that when you do tuning, if you do it remotely, this is only for remote tuning, not on a dyno per se, because they'll already have everything you need. If you do street tuning though, or remote tuning, you want that wideband so your tuner can see your air fuel, especially under wide open throttle, so that they can dial it in right, and that your tune is stout and good. And then the follow-up with that would be the NOx sensors not being there. So in this case, if you do buy this car, or this year range of the GT500s, you probably want to get familiar with how to read NOx sensors, or better yet, you want to be able to read spark plugs. So that means, you know, after a dyno session, if you're tuning it that way, if you're doing street tuning, and you do a couple wide open throttle pulls, you're going to want to pull some of those plugs out, use a reference guide online, and read the plugs and see what it looks like. If it looks like there's detonation or anything involving that, sorry, the words are losing me here, then you can give that feedback to your tuner, because most likely they'll ask you for that, to see, you know, whether or not, hey, you know, does it have too much timing in it, etc. I won't get into the details, but yeah, that's something you should definitely know off the bat, that you're going to want to get a wideband for your car and want to learn how to read your spark plugs and probably change those yourselves, you should be all set in the realm of the modification area. Intake tune, pulley, heat exchanger, and a good tire, maybe with a good set of wheels on it, depending on how you feel, and then getting a wideband, and know already that there's no knock sensors, and that you'll probably have to read your spark plugs and get familiar with working on your car for the most part. And the 2011 to 2014 cars, they already have those, so it makes it super easy for tuning, and the car kind of does its own thing and has the tech for it. These cars don't, so should be something on your list to take note of. I believe that's really about it. Great cars to drive. I love it. I've already done multiple things with my car that have just made it better overall. I wouldn't trade it in probably for anything else at this point. It's kind of the dream car for me, and I'm sure that you're watching this right now because it's the same thing for you, and you're definitely looking or are already in the market to buy one. So these are just kind of my thoughts, kind of like a brain dump here, and kind of take it with a grain of salt, I guess, and see if you can confirm the same things in your own research. But yeah, hopefully this is a car for you. Check them out, do your research, get what you can done to make sure you're prepared, and have fun with the car.